AI made creation cheap when judgment became expensive. Everybody is trying to figure out what skill they should learn before the world changes again. Should you learn artificial intelligence? Should you learn coding, marketing, sales? Should you even go back to school? Should you start a YouTube channel, build an app, write a newsletter, find a secure job, or forget the job and build something of your own? There are more opportunities than ever, and somehow that has made more people afraid to choose. Because the moment you choose one direction, you start wondering whether another direction is moving faster. You start learning one skill and think, what if AI replaces this? What if this industry disappears? What if I spend the next 2 years becoming good at something that becomes ordinary? That fear is not completely irrational. The world is moving quickly, but I believe most people are asking the wrong question. The question is not what skill will remain valuable forever. Almost no technical skill remains valuable in exactly the same form forever. The better question is, what allows me to continue becoming valuable while the tools keep changing? And my answer is judgment. The judgment to recognize an important problem, the judgment to distinguish truth from noise, the judgment to understand what people actually need, the judgment to choose between 100 options artificial intelligence can generate in seconds. Because AI can produce options, but it cannot remove your responsibility to choose. It can write the words, but it cannot guarantee that the words deserve to be said. It can create the product, but it cannot guarantee that the product deserves to exist. It can give you a map, but it cannot decide where your life should go. Artificial intelligence is making creation cheap. And when creation becomes cheap, judgment becomes expensive. That is what this video is about. A lot of people are searching for one skill that will permanently protect them from uncertainty. One degree, one profession, one platform, one business model, one answer that allows them to stop adapting. But reality does not work that way. Markets change, technology changes, consumer behavior changes, institutions change. What was scarce becomes abundant. What was valuable becomes ordinary. And the economy does not owe permanent demand to a skill simply because you worked hard to acquire it. That's harsh. That sounds harsh, but it also reveals where your real security comes from. Your security is not one tool. It is your ability to observe, learn, build, communicate, adapt, and correct yourself. The person who only understands a tool becomes dependent on that tool. The person who understands the human problem underneath the tool can move between tools. Coding matters because people want software. Marketing matters because people need to understand why an offer deserves their attention. Medicine matters because human beings experience injury, pain, disease, fear, aging, and death. Writing matters because human beings need invisible ideas translated into language. Architecture matters because people need physical spaces that organize human life. Economics matters because human beings live under scarcity and must make choices. The value does not originate in the tool. The value originates in the human need the tool helps address. That is why understanding human nature is not some soft skill added on top of the serious skills. It is underneath them. Human nature is the terrain. Your technical abilities are vehicles moving across that terrain. And a faster vehicle does not help much when the person driving it cannot read the road. Sometimes it simply helps them crash faster. Here is the economic law underneath the AI revolution. When abundance enters one layer, scarcity moves to another. The internet made information abundant. You can learn almost anything. Artificial intelligence is now making production abundant. Words are abundant. Images are abundant. Videos are abundant. Business ideas are abundant. Software is becoming more abundant. Content is so abundant that much of it carries almost no weight. But attention is still scarce. Trust is still scarce. Taste is still scarce. Credibility is still scarce. Real expertise is still scarce. The ability to recognize the right problem is still scarce. The ability to tell the truth when lying will be more profitable is still scarce. The ability to produce good judgment repeatedly is still scarce. Those things are becoming more valuable. Imagine that 10 people can now create the same kind of product in one afternoon. The winner will not automatically be the person who produced the most. It may be the person who understood the customer most accurately. The person who choose the right problem, the person who communicated the value clearly, the person who earned trust before asking for money, the person whose work reflects a recognizable standard. This is why so much AI generated content feels empty. The machine produced something, but no serious mind decided why that thing should exist. There was output without selection, language without conviction, information without hierarchy, production without judgment. And we are about to be flooded with more of this. More books, more apps, more videos, more courses, more advertisements, more content, more published nothing. Production is becoming abundant. Meaning is not. The physics of attention. Now, let us look at the physics underneath communication. A mind at rest tends to remain at rest until enough force acts upon it. People do not pay attention merely because you posted something. They do not care merely because you worked hard on it. They do not act merely because your argument is technically correct. There must be enough force to overcome inertia. There must be a reason for the mind to move from its current position. This is why weak communication disappears. It carries no tension, no stakes, no cost, no meaningful direction. It asks the mind to move without applying enough force. But human beings are not empty machines waiting to receive information. Every person carries fears, ambitions, memories, identities, beliefs, wounds, incentives, and expectations. Every message enters that existing system, and there are three major pressures operating inside it. I call them preservation, position, possibility. What must I protect? Who am I? What could I become? These three pressures influence much of what people notice, reject, purchase, defend, and also pursue. Preservation. What does preservation ask? Preservation asks, what am I afraid of losing? What danger must I avoid? What problem must I remove? What must be protected? This includes physical survival, but it also includes financial survival, social survival, emotional survival, the protection of time, health, status, relationships, comfort, and opportunity. A person may not be running from a wild animal, but they may be worried about rent. They may fear losing their job. They may fear their body is breaking down. They may fear becoming technologically irrelevant. They may fear wasting another 10 years. They may fear waking up at 40 or 50 and realizing they never built anything that belonged to them. These pressures capture attention because the mind gives priority to perceived threats. But this is where ethics enters the conversation. There is a difference between revealing a real danger and manufacturing a false one. There is a difference between helping someone recognize a cost and exaggerating a cost to control them. You might tell someone you are not simply tired. You are attempting to finance ambition with biological debt. That may help them recognize that food, sleep, movement, and recovery are infrastructure. Or you could invent a health fear to sell them a worthless product. Both messages apply pressure. Only one respects the person receiving it. Persuasion reveals reality. Manipulation distorts reality. Remember that distinction. Because AI is going to make manipulative communication easier to produce at scale. Position. The second pressure is position. Position asks, who am I? Where do I belong? What kind of person am I? How do other people see me? Human beings do not only protect the body, we protect our identities. That is why an attack on an idea can feel like an attack on the person. People identify with political parties, religions, professions, sports teams, schools, neighborhoods, economic classes. They identify as disciplined or undisciplined, successful or unsuccessful, independent or dependent, pro-AI or anti-AI. Once an idea becomes part of identity, evidence is no longer entering an empty room. Evidence is walking into guarded territory. That is why people can argue for hours and learn absolutely nothing. They are not always defending the truth. They are defending continuity of self. They need the belief to remain true because they do not know who they would be without it. That is one of the greatest threats to judgment. When your identity depends on an idea remaining true, you lose the ability to test that idea honestly. You stop asking, is this true? And you start asking, how do I defend what I already believe? That is not thinking. That is intellectual self-defense. A sovereign mind must be capable of holding strong convictions without becoming imprisoned by them. You should have principles. You should have standards. But you should never construct an identity so fragile that reality is forbidden from correcting you. Possibility. The third pressure is possibility. Possibility asks, what could I become? What future is available to me? What happens if I continue? What happens if I change? Human beings are not only trying to avoid danger. We are trying to move towards something. Growth, mastery, freedom, love, status, meaning, discovery, sovereignty. Human beings can act in the present because of a future that does not yet exist. A company does not exist until someone begins acting as though it could. A strong body does not exist until someone repeatedly trains toward it. A book begins as an invisible structure inside a mind. A civilization begins as an idea about how life could be organized differently. But possibility has a dangerous side. A future imagined without its cost becomes delusion. A transformation promised without sacrifice becomes narcotic marketing. You cannot ethically show people the destination while hiding the terrain. Real possibility includes the price. It says, this is what you could become. This is what it may demand from you. This is what you may have to surrender. This is the friction you will encounter. This is the standard you will have to preserve. That is not pessimism. That is respect. The 5 forces. So how do you apply this? How do you become, say, a better writer, creator, entrepreneur, teacher, speaker, or communicator? I believe there are 5 forces that move attention in action. Reveal the cost, mirror the person, draw the line, make the future visible, reduce the first friction. Let us break this down. Let us break them down. Reveal the cost. Before people value your answer, they must understand the question. Before they care about the solution, they must recognize the cost of the problem. That does not mean yelling louder. It means making the invisible tax visible. Most serious problems charge interest before people recognize them. Poor health may not destroy the body in one day, it takes energy gradually. Disorganization may not collapse a business immediately, it drains attention through hundreds of unfinished decisions. Avoidance may not appear dangerous, but it compounds the distance between who you are and who you keep saying you want to become. A weak financial system may survive for months until one expected bill reveals that there was never any margin. Clear communication reveals the hidden cost. You might say, you do not have a motivation problem. You built an environment where the wrong action has less friction than the right one. Or you are not saving time by skipping real meals. You are borrowing energy at a predatory interest rate. Or you are not confused because there are no opportunities. You are confused because you refuse to choose a cost. That is how you reveal a problem. Not by frightening people for entertainment, but by helping them see what their current pattern is already charging them. Mirror the person. The second force that we talked about is mirroring the person. People listen differently when they believe the message understands their condition. For example, if you are trying to build a body, a business, a mind, and a future at the same time, you cannot treat your biology as an inconvenience. That sentence identifies a particular person, a builder carrying several ambitions, a person who may be neglecting the biological infrastructure underneath the mission, or if you are tired of collecting systems you never follow, this is not another productivity routine. That person recognizes themselves. They self-select. The strongest communicators know exactly who they are speaking to. They do not vaguely speak to everybody. They speak to a specific person in a specific condition under a specific pressure. Draw the line. The third force is drawing the line. A philosophy without boundaries becomes decoration. A brand without boundaries becomes generic. A product that attempts to serve everyone usually becomes useful to no one. You must explain what your work is and what it refuses to become. This is not for people looking for another temporary motivational high. This is for people willing to build standards that remain after the emotion disappears. This is not anti-school or pro-school. This is anti-passivity. Whatever path you choose must be converted into capability. This is not a promise that AI will make you wealthy. Artificial intelligence can increase your output. It cannot guarantee demand for what you produce. Drawing the line creates clarity. And exclusion is not automatically arrogance. Every serious discipline excludes something. Science excludes claims that cannot survive testing. Architecture excludes structures that cannot stand. Medicine excludes treatments whose risks outweigh their benefits. A standard is a form of exclusion. Without exclusion, there is no form. Only sprawl. Make the future visible. The fourth force is making the future visible. People move toward what they can imagine, but do not merely tell people that they can become successful. Show them what changes. A person who understands human nature enters a room and notices the forces operating underneath the conversation. They hear what someone says, but they also examine the incentive beneath it. They create products around real problems instead of assumptions. They communicate without burrowing useful ideas beneath unnecessary complexity. They use AI without becoming intellectually dependent on it. They can enter a new industry and learn faster because they look for the permanent human need beneath the temporary tool. They build trust because their work repeatedly reflects judgment. That is the future you are offering. Not control over other people, control over your own perception. Becoming more perceptive, more useful, more difficult to deceive, more capable of moving through the world without being controlled by every new trend, fear, outrage cycle, advertisement, or ideology. That is sovereignty. Reduce the first friction. The fifth force is reducing the first friction. A person can agree with everything you say and still do nothing. Agreement is not movement. Intention is not execution. The mind may desire the transformation while the body remains loyal to comfort. The first action cannot require the energy of the entire transformation. You do not build the whole company today. You identify one painful problem people may pay you to address. You do not master writing today. You write and publish one clear argument. You do not rebuild your health today. You eat one complete meal. You drink water. You prepare the next meal before hunger becomes an emergency. You do not master human nature today. You observe one interaction and write down. What did this person want? What was they protecting? What identity were they defending? What future were they moving forward toward? The first action should be small enough to begin, but meaningful enough to produce evidence, because action creates information that thought alone cannot produce. Once you move, reality begins answering you. Applied empiricism. You can read psychology book. You can read every psychology book ever written and remain socially blind. You can study marketing without learning what people will purchase. You can study entrepreneurship without producing anything that market values. You can study writing while continuing to avoid the page. Theory does not automatically become judgment. Judgment requires contact with reality. You must write and allow people to misunderstand you. You must speak and notice where attention disappears. You must create an offer and discover whether anybody values it enough to pay. You must make decisions and experience consequences. You must become wrong without collapsing. Observation, hypothesis, action, feedback, correction. That is applied empiricism. The market can become a harsh mentor, but we must be precise about what the market teaches. The market does not determine the complete truth. It does not determine morality. It does not determine what is scientifically correct. It does not determine what is beautiful. It does not determine what is good for civilization. The market tells you whether a group of people noticed, wanted, trusted, selected, or purchased something under particular conditions. That is useful evidence, but it is not all of reality. A manipulative product can sell. A false idea can spread. An addictive platform can grow. Popularity is evidence of response. It is not proof of truth. You all know this. A mature value creator learns from the market without worshiping it. Use feedback to refine your communication. Use evidence to determine what is true. Use ethics to determine what should be done. Use philosophy to decide what deserves to be built. Use judgment to integrate all of it. Persuasion is force. Persuasion has a bad reputation because people have seen force used irresponsibly. But force itself is not evil. Force starts action. Systems protect action. Standards preserve action. Persuasion is a kind of force. It moves attention. It changes perception. It influences decisions. A teacher uses persuasion to help a student remain with a difficult idea. A physician uses persuasion to help a patient follow a necessary treatment. A parent uses persuasion to teach a child about danger. A founder uses persuasion to convince people that a problem deserves resources. A writer uses persuasion to make an invisible truth visible. The ethical question is not whether you influence people. The ethical question, you cannot communicate without influencing. The ethical question is, what direction are you moving them in? Are you increasing their clarity or exploiting their confusion? Are you revealing real consequences or manufacturing fear? Are you helping them make a stronger decision or weakening their ability to choose? Manipulation treats another person's mind as territory to conquer. Persuasion at its highest level treats the mind as a sovereign system worthy of truth. That must be the standard. Why AI makes judgment more valuable? Artificial intelligence increases leverage, and leverage magnifies both intelligence and stupidity. A person with strong judgment can use AI to accelerate research, organize ideas, test arguments, build prototypes, automate operations, and create systems that once required an entire team. A person with weak judgment can use the same technology to produce misinformation, generic products, empty content, fragile businesses, and thousands of polished versions of a bad idea. AI does not eliminate the need for human development. It exposes the cost of not developing. When everyone can produce, the questions become who can discern, who can select, who can verify, who can communicate, who can be trusted, who understands what should not be automated, who can build technology that strengthens human beings instead of making them more dependent. That is where value is moving. The future does not belong merely to people with access to artificial intelligence. Access will become ordinary. The future belongs to people who combine AI with a developed mind, a trained body, useful skills, a credible body of work, a real philosophy, and a reputation for judgment. Here are my 5 pillars. The 5 pillars. This connects directly to the 5 pillars of personal evolution: health, energy, wealth, money, sovereignty. Understanding human nature strengthens all 5 of these. Health requires understanding behavior, pain, habit, fear, biology, and compliance. Energy requires understanding friction, attention, recovery, environment, and momentum. Wealth requires creating assets that remain useful beyond the hour in which they were produced. Money requires identifying problems, communicating value, earning trust, and completing exchanges. Sovereignty requires understanding your own mind well enough that every advertisement, ideology, algorithm, trend, and outrage cycle cannot control it. Human nature is not another pillar. It is one of the root systems beneath the pillars. Because every pillar must be lived through a human being. Here's an exercise. For the next 7 days, study one human interaction every day. A conversation, an advertisement, a social media post, a sales page, a political speech, a disagreement, a purchase you made, a video that held your attention. And then I want you to ask, what cost was revealed? What identity was reflected? What line was drawn? What future was made visible? What first action was requested? Then ask the harder questions. Was the problem real? Was the message accurate? Was something important hidden? Does this communication increase clarity or dependence? Would I respect the creator more or less if I understood exactly how the message was constructed? Do not study human nature merely to control other people. Study it to gain greater control over your own self. Notice what makes you click. Notice what makes you angry. Notice what makes you afraid. Notice what makes you buy. Notice what causes you to defend an idea before examining it. Notice what future you continue imagining but refuse to pay for through action. You are not standing outside human nature looking in. You are the first subject in the laboratory. The tools will continue changing. There will be another AI model, another platform, another business opportunity, another skill declared essential, another prediction that everything you know is about to become worthless. Learn the tools. Use them. Do not become technologically passive, but do not confuse the tool with the source of value. The source of value is still your ability to perceive reality, understand people, identify meaningful problems, create useful transformations, communicate clearly, and make judgments that survive consequences. That is the source of value that you have the ability over. Artificial intelligence may produce an answer, but a human being still has to determine whether the question was worth asking. It may provide the map. It may reduce the cost of creation, but a human being must still choose the destination. But it cannot remove the cost of becoming someone capable of creating well. That development is still expensive. It requires study, mistakes, experience, humility, discipline, correction, contact with reality. That is why the most important skill is not merely artificial intelligence, it is the human intelligence required to direct it. AI made creation cheap. Judgment became expensive, and the people who develop judgment will not have to spend their entire lives chasing opportunities. They will become the kind of people capable of recognizing and creating opportunities wherever they go. This channel is about building the 5 pillars of personal evolution: health, energy, wealth, money, sovereignty. This isn't motivational slogan, but as systems to be studied, tested, applied, and refined against reality. Subscribe to the channel and join the Dante Taviantz letter through the link in the description. We are not here to passively consume the future. We are here to become capable of building it. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you very soon. Have a great, beautiful day.